Dodgy Dave.
So in this segment, we're going to be talking about Dodgy Dave. This article here hurt because this man is just he's a bad human being. He's a bad human being, and if austerity hasn't taught you that, and his rule as Prime Minister, this should hurt, because Cameron kept pushing the Bank of England and the Treasury to risk £20 billion of taxpayers' money to help Greensill. So this is a man who consistently said that the country has no money for poor people and for public services. We have to make cuts, and he asked the Bank of England and the Treasury to gamble up to £20 billion in taxpayer cash to help Greensill Capital. So we'll go into the article. David Cameron repeatedly pushed the Bank of England and the Treasury to risk up to £20 billion in taxpayers' cash to help Greensill, just as the lender started to face significant financial pressure. And this article does well to list Greensill's kind of business model and what it's been described as a Ponzi scheme. And we'll talk about that once it comes. But this is incredibly dodgy. Their business model is very shaky at best. Don't want to get it done for defamation. The UK Central Bank was urged to provide support to Greensill, including by setting up a fund that would buy loans made by the financial services company and its competitors, in a string of emails to senior officials. So he wanted the Bank of England to buy up loans that Greensill had made. So that way Greensill will make the money back. And they wouldn't be liable for these businesses going under and investors not getting returns. Incredibly dodgy. In one, Cameron introduced Greensill's founder to one of the Bank of England's 4 deputy governors, John Cunliffe. We'll go with Cunliffe. The exchanges published by the Bank of England on Thursday afternoon became increasingly desperate in tone as requests from Greensill for government backing were turned down. So, Cameron got so desperate that it was only the Treasury that could approve any sort of loan to Greensill. He was so desperate, he even asked for rule changes from the Bank of England. Cameron described the situation as incredibly frustrating and complained, "I must be missing something here." And you can see the desperation David Cameron as kind of the emails go on, and they have some of the emails in this article. This is great work from The Guardian and the people mentioned here. Great work from them. So in one, Cameron introduced Greensill's founder to one of the Bank of England's 4 deputy governors, John Cunliffe. The exchanges published by the Bank of England on Thursday became increasingly desperate in tone as requests from Greensill for government backing were turned down. Cameron described the situation as difficult. I would mention this. On Thursday, the Treasury released details of a call between Cameron and John Glenn MP, the Economic Secretary to the Treasury. Cameron is said to have argued that supporting Greensill would be the most effective way to help small and medium businesses that relied on it for finance. So he was saying that, look, by supporting Greensill, you support small and medium businesses, when the government could directly just help small and medium businesses. They don't need a middleman. Ridiculous arguments from Dave. The Treasury has also released text messages between Cameron and Glenn, saying that the Treasury had decided not to extend the funding to Greensill, but offers a private call to explain the decision. So how many people who couldn't get their business a loan from the government were offered a private phone call to explain? Not many, I'd assume. The Treasury said it would not be releasing Cameron's text to Glenn because of his expectation of privacy, which is just ridiculous because Glenn is an MP. This should go through freedom of information and we should get access to the messages. The disclosures underline the concerted efforts made by Cameron to promote Greensill, approaching ministers, civil servants and officials over a period of weeks. This man became incredibly desperate for this company to succeed. He put more effort into helping Greensill than did helping people in Britain. That's how much David Cameron begged, because I think he had shares in Greensill, and if Greensill was floated on the stock market, he would have made a ton of money. MPs were told the beleaguered former Prime Minister had personally lobbied the Treasury's most senior civil servant, Tom Scholar, and secured 9 meetings with another department's key officials. So Greensill probably wouldn't have had this much access without David Cameron, and that tells you why David Cameron was hired by Greensill, for that kind of access. The revolving door. Scholar, the Treasury's permanent secretary, told Public Accounts Committee the former Prime Minister had called and sent some text messages to demand help from Greensill. And who are you, David Cameron, to demand help from your finance company that you work for? Who are you? I don't care if you're a former Prime Minister. The absolute nous of this guy during a pandemic where people are struggling to ask for ask for the government and to ask for taxpayers, to risk up to £20 billion for you. Honestly, this guy, man. The Cabinet Office launched an investigation into leaked texts from Boris Johnson's phone to to billionaire James Dyson. This is a separate story, which we covered depending on how the schedule goes. Tory insiders and former officials told The Guardian that informal text communications for government business is commonplace, which shouldn't be the case. This has been happening for years. I remember David Cameron was using WhatsApp to avoid having to reveal messages under Freedom of Information Act. So again, this has been happening for a long time. The Bank of England's correspondence revealed as part of a Freedom of Information request shows for the first time the pressure that the former Prime Minister and his colleagues exerted on central bank officials. So he was lobbying hard for this company. Incredibly hard. At the time, Greensill was attempting to lobby for access to the government's largest COVID support scheme, the COVID Corporate Financing Facility, CCFF, which Greensill ultimately did not qualify for. I think it's meant to say qualify for. It's a typo there. Come on, Guardian. You had 3 people writing this. But what we can gather from this is that he lobbied incredibly hard to get access from the government, and that the government were handing out money like it was sweets at Halloween. So it's very strange that Greensill didn't actually get a loan. It does tell you about their business model. Cameron and Greensill's founder and chief executive Lex Greensill contacted the bank at least 7 times in March and April 2020, even corresponding with officials during weekends. That's how desperate they were. They were annoying people on their days off. After gaining direct access to Cunliffe, who is the bank's deputy governor for financial stability. So they managed to get this dude's number and other people's number, and they were just badgering him. Greensill, a supply chain finance specialist, collapsed in February after an Australian insurer refused to renew guarantees underpinning billions of dollars it had made to customers. So it basically meant that if the investments go wrong, the insurance company would cover it. That's my interpretation of it. I could be wrong. Let me know if I am. Those loans for which Greensill collected a fee from the borrower were then bundled up and sold to investors. So basically what happened was Greensill would offer cheap capital to businesses, and then they would sell off those loans to other companies, which those other companies would probably be free to increase the interest rates on those loans. So yeah, not great. The precarious arrangements was described as a Ponzi scheme by MPs on Thursday as they grilled Treasury officials as they opened their inquiry into the Greensill lobbying scandal. So if you want to know what a Ponzi scheme is, which was one of my favourite phrases, Ponzi scheme is a fraudulent scheme, a fraudulent investing scam which generates returns for earlier investors with money taken from later investors. So not great. This is similar to a pyramid scheme in that both are based on using new investors' funds to pay back early investors. So what my interpretation is, again, of what Greensill would do, again, if I'm wrong, correct me, that they would get investments from people, they would loan out money to companies, then they would sell off those loans to other companies, and then they would use that money to pay off the original investors. And if we actually look at what Greensill wanted from the Treasury and from taxpayers essentially, is that they wanted the UK central bank to buy up those loans made by financial services and its competitors. So they wanted the Bank of England and the Treasury. They wanted what David Cameron wanted from the Treasury was that at the Treasury and the Bank of England is he wanted them to buy up the loans that Greensill had handed out. And no doubt Greensill could have made money off this because they would have incurred a fee from doing this. So it's very dodgy what's happened here. In 2020, so March 2020, after introductions by Cameron, Lex Greensill sent Cunliffe a letter asking for government backing. So it's very unlikely that Lex Greensill could have met Cunliffe without David Cameron. Greensill pitched the idea to the Bank of England as an opportunity to get money directly to small business borrowers, despite the fact that the Bank of England could do so already. They would be able to do this if they wanted to. With a government-backed fund to support it, Greensill would be free to issue more loans. So that's what they wanted. They wanted the Bank of England to buy off the bad debt, by the looks of things. Again, interpretation. They wanted the Bank of England to buy off the bad debt, potentially from Greensill, and therefore Greensill could move on to do more loans. It says here, in current markets, investors are unsettled and seeking redemption. So they wanted the money out of Greensill, and that's one of the things that tanked Greensill in the end. In our judgment, the initial size of the facility needs to be in order of between 10 to 20 billion if it's to provide the necessary level of confidence to the capital markets that will ensure the effectiveness in this extraordinary time, Greensill added. So he needed this amount of money in order to keep investors happy and in order to show that, Greensill isn't struggling. If investors think your company's dodgy, they're not going to invest. Or if they think that it's not financially stable, it's not going to invest. A briefing note produced by the Bank of England makes it clear that Greensill was facing financial pressure due to market turmoil when the government's guarantee was requested. The note details a call on the 17th of March between the Bank of England, Greensill and Cameron. However, Cameron said that he didn't know about the Greensill's problems until later on, I believe. So, again, very dodgy. Greensill and Cameron were ultimately directed to the Treasury, which had final authority over the scheme, but Cameron continued to lobby the Bank of England for a change of rules. The former Tory leader who held stock options in the business, so he would have made money off this, and was a paid advisor. So it was in his best interest for Greensill to survive, because he would have made bank. Saying that he had numerous conversations with the Treasury but failed to get anywhere. So why didn't at that point David Cameron wonder, why is the Treasury not helping him? That's something David Cameron is probably going to think about for a long time. Cameron wanted to change to the CCF mandate that would allow the Bank of England to buy bonds linked to supply chain finance. So again, he wanted the Bank of England to change the rules to benefit himself. The former Prime Minister appears to have become exasperated by the refusal of officials to change policies. Him saying that you're cutting off small and medium enterprises, but the simple fact is David Cameron's never cared about small and medium enterprises. He's only really cared about big businesses that maybe donate to the Tory party. So it's incredibly stupid. While Greensill was ultimately rebuffed in its effort to access the CCF, it was later accredited to offer government-backed loans through the second largest government-backed scheme in 2020. So again, he got very frustrated. He couldn't get access to any kind of major government financing, but it's his own fault for having such a company. Annalise Dodds, the Shadow Chancellor, said, "We need to follow the money. Greensill was carrying the begging bowl from the Bank of England to the Treasury and back. The Chancellor can't keep ducking this. He must come out of hiding and explain his role in the Conservative sleaze." And I would add that, what the Labour Party need to push is that the fact that ordinary people do not have this sort of access to government officials to fight for their companies, essentially fight for their businesses, which may have gone under the pandemic. I've seen more boarded up businesses in the town centre over the last year, predominantly cafes and things like that, because of the pandemic, because they couldn't get access to the funding they needed. Imagine if they could have spoken to Rishi Sunak and others directly and asked, why aren't we getting the help? Maybe things would be different for them. A spokesperson for Dave said Greensill were not asking for a government loan or direct support in any way. I mean, that doesn't look like that's the case. The Treasury letter rejecting the proposals in June makes clear that Greensill reported that market conditions were improving, so the idea that Greensill was in difficulty at that stage is nonsense. Yeah, if you weren't in difficulty in June, but somehow you've gone under in February, despite the fact that you're supposedly got a lot of money, is a bit strange. So these are the emails. This is hilarious. So Cameron said to the Bank of England's Deputy Governor Cunliffe, saying that I do a lot of work with Greensill Capital, now the world leaders in the space. We would be keen to help. Do you have a moment for a quick word? I'm on my old number or can call you whenever convenient. So again, it just show you how dodgy this thing is, especially since he's saying that Greensill are going to offer their help to the Bank of England when it was David Cameron that needed help. So this is a message from David Cameron to James Benford, who's the private secretary to the governor, saying the purpose of this email is to introduce you to Lex Greensill, founder and CEO of Greensill Capital. I am an advisor to the company. He should have mentioned that I have shares in the company as well. We would be keen to step and help during the current difficulty. So again, he's trying to make it out like he's trying to help small and medium enterprises when Cameron evidently is not. He's trying to save Greensill. He doesn't care about small and medium enterprises. Get out of it. So an email, another one from Cameron to John Cunliffe, saying that, John, I'm writing to you. So they're on a first name basis, which tells you how close they are. I'm writing to you for your help. Greensill, who I work for, have had numerous conversations with Her Majesty's Treasury, but failed to get anywhere. This request is simple. Please include in the CCFF the ability to purchase bond issues in respect to supply chain finance. These will allow us to pump billions into SMEs. Again, if the Bank of England want to put money into small and medium enterprises, they could probably do so. or the government, if they wanted to do so, could do it. So this argument Cameron's making is ridiculous. Why are we potentially cutting off a market that already pumps cheap credit directly into SMEs? Again, he's trying to make it out like he's trying to help people, but he's not. David Cameron only cares about himself, his donors, and his rich mates. That's one of the reasons why he privatised Royal Mail and sold the stocks cheaper than he should have done. He's never cared about any ordinary person. He's never cared about small enterprises. Get out of here. David Cameron to the Bank of England again, John Cunliffe, saying, apologies for bothering you again. We, Greensill, have had lots of conversations with Her Majesty's Treasury, and while every question seems to be answered, we haven't got the green light. It's incredibly frustrating because, as you know, trade finance paper included in a similar scheme in 2008-9, and it will work again. Sure, mate. I don't want to put you in any trouble. I don't want to put you to the trouble of a long email chain. Then ultimately, this is a Her Majesty's Treasury call. So why are you bothering this man? And we continue to talk to them at every level. But could I ask you to do one call with Greensill so that he can brief you on where we have got to. This comes with all good wishes. So what you're seeing is David Cameron basically spoke to the Bank of England as a plan B. His plan B was to get involved in that CCFF thing, so that the Bank of England could buy the loans given out by Greensill, and that way Greensill would no longer be liable if the company goes under. That looked like David Cameron's big play. So very dodgy from Dave, incredibly dodgy. And you got to ask yourself the question: if you run a medium enterprise, do you have this sort of access to, people within the Treasury, people within the government, people within the Bank of England? No. And if you don't, why should David Cameron? Why should Greensill? Because he's for Prime Minister? No. He's not a public official anymore. He's not a MP anymore. He's not working for the public anymore. Should he have access? No. And it shows you how desperate Greensill were in the end, that they were asking for around between 10 to 20 billion of taxpayers' money, when we're told that we don't have any money. We're told we don't have money for a nurse's pay rise. Yeah, David Cameron expected the Treasury to hand him potentially £20 billion of taxpayers' money. Nah. This doesn't sit right with me. It shouldn't sit right with anyone. And I really want people to start understanding how bad the Tory sleaze is, and that, when times are rough, they fight for each other in their own. Fair enough. Sunak didn't approve the scheme for Greensill, but it looked incredibly toxic, and I think Sunak would be an idiot for helping out this company, Greensill Capital. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.